Welcome everyone to a very special episode of the podcast. This is a debut episode for a new series I'm going to be running. This is Insert Topic. This is where we sit down with a group of people and we'll pick one particular subject and we'll have a long form conversation about it between ourselves. Joining me on this first episode is Jay from Dan Buster, Mike the freelance artist who's just on the last episode, Patrick from Dan Buster, and Kieran from Rebellion. Gents, we doing good?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Sounds good. Sounds like I can hear everyone. We're all good. Right, so this is a disclaimer. If you haven't watched the UE5 demo, please go watch it. It's this whole talk's going to be about. But I suppose I've just got to come out about and establish it. It was pretty breathtaking the first time I watched it. You know, that first reaction of watching the trailer without actually processing it and like thinking about it just on face value. I was pretty gobsmacked. I don't know what you guys thought.
Yeah,
Dead all jump at once.
exactly the same reaction.
I mean, literally, no one. When we saw it, no one had words for it. To be honest, that was.
How long did it take you guys to start, like, processing it from a game dev point of view? Because at first glance, you're just like, all the beautiful polygons, unlimited polygons, and limited res textures and all that sort of stuff. How long did it take before you actually started like digesting it and applying some logic to it?
Well, it's worth mentioning right off the bat that, like, I'm pretty sure all of us were in a Discord call watching it for the first time, aside from you, Alex. You were away doing some other business stuff, but like, yeah, I mean, the first time, very few words were spoken for the most part. Just absolutely enjoying the riveting display of new tech. I'm sure most of us went back and watched it a second time and started to really think about the technology and its potential from a game art perspective, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah,
what
crazy stuff.
But what was so like for me? We were just talking in a call before this, and I said that the thing that was most, once I've thought about it, most tech demos you see are on PCs, and they always come with a caveat of, oh yeah, but that's 3 Titans like running that, like whatever, I don't care. All the buzzwords and all the limited polygons and resolution and blah blah blah. I kind of, once I digested it, I ignored, and the bit which I still think, and it still surprises me now, is the fact that it was on a PS5.
Yeah.
That whole caveat of PC, crazy rig can't afford it is kind of out the window now with this, even for a tech demo.
Sorry.
Oh, you guys are funny.
Still absorbing a lot of it.
Yeah, I haven't looked into PS5 too much. I don't know. When I first saw it, I was just like mind blown just from what I saw. Right, like I didn't even think about the whole tech thing. For me, it was just like wow, like just not even observing it from a game dev perspective, just like as a gamer, like just I was just amazed. Like games gonna look amazing soon.
I think what was funny,
but like it's going just more crazy and crazy, right?
I think what was funny about it was that we were watching it, and you had these 2 guys at the start talking, and we just thought it was going to be some kind of like generic announcement. I didn't really even pay attention to the title. Like, almost thought it was a April Fool's, like late April Fool's kind of thing. And then we started seeing it, and it was like, oh wow, actually, like from a art direction perspective, this is pretty nice. Like we've seen some pretty dope Quixel stuff done before in the past, but this was just seemed to be on another level. And like the joke, I noticed the joking while we were watching it slowly died, and by the end we were just silent watching it.
Yeah. As soon as she breaks through,
I think it's right as they showed that wireframe. That first time they showed the wireframe, where it was like almost a triangle per pixel, that everyone went very quiet.
Yeah, it just looked like a noise texture.
Yeah, telling when it said that they were when they specified they were like the cinematic grade Quixel assets. It was like, okay, they're not messing around here, clearly.
Yeah.
Some really groundbreaking tech.
And then that was even without the lighting stuff.
Yeah, like I was very amazed at the first when he moved the light, and it like kept the whole cave like bright, like with GI. I was like, oh wow, no bakes anymore.
Yeah, I'm just very appreciative of the fact that going back to the point you were making, Alex, the transparency of it being, with the texture sizes being 8K, full cinematic grade, Megascans assets, and was it 30 FPS, 4K. But now we know, thanks to like the tech analysis from Digital Foundry as well as employees from Epic that have like come out and gave a bit more detail. We were starting to understand that okay, it was 1440p native and then upsampled.
Oh right,
We're
yeah.
starting to get some more information about it, but yeah, just the transparency on the Epic side of things kind of conveys the fact that they're being quite serious about this. It's nothing's hidden behind a curtain. It's not some PC. It's just PS5 tech, and it gives us a better expectation for what we're expected to see from this technology.
What's always quite funny about these things is that with these tech demos and videos and people kind of bragging about the technology that they have, it usually comes with a heavy asterisk of, oh, this is actually how it's run. And so the hype is all there until you realize actually it might not be that giant leap that you think it is. This time around, it was like, this is everything. This is everything running on a PS5. And it's just kind of crazy to think that all of this can happen in just one generation jump. It seems like this would be like a PS6 kind of announcement, the things you'd want to see in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah.
It's running on 30 FPS, right?
30 FPS, 1440p, but it's upscaled as far as we know.
Yes.
And it's a DSR, so dynamic resolution as well.
Yes, dynamic resolution scaling. Yeah.
So just to shift it a little bit, I know we're talking about U5, but one thing the thing I thought was, okay, we were all taken completely by surprise by this. None of us saw this coming. Now, what is this? The bit I find interesting is, okay, we're probably going to be like, it's going to be like another dev cycle before people start like leveraging this sort of tech. Well, that's great for people using Unreal because they sort of know this is here, the tech's there, they've just got to get around to being able to implement it. What does this mean though for like, Unity? I mean, is there going to be a counterblow to that? And then there's also, people like Snowdrop and all these other software companies, engines who are kind of like, do they now have to do the catch up of getting to this point? Or do you think they had stuff in the pipeline ready?
So we haven't got any official words on exactly how they're doing this yet.
Right.
We've talked about it in chat a little bit, and I had a brief talk with Brian Lalou, who's very technical, and he introduced me to NVIDIA's Meshlets demo from, I believe, SIGGRAPH 2018. That was one of the tech showcases. And it essentially, if it does work that way, which we think that it has to be something similar because it seems to stream the triangles based on screen space, so it only loads what needs to be on screen per frame, essentially. So if it's something like that, other programs can implement ways of drawing meshes like that, but that gets much more difficult when it comes to you're actually editing the meshes in real time. So there does probably need to be some significant development. And don't forget that they're talking insane poly counts. Not obviously in games we could. I'm not sure of the limitations of because they also said that it requires it's based off of your resolution as well. Like you can control the quality based off of resolution.
Yeah.
So if we have something like that, how do we change how that streams per mesh? And there's just a lot of possible things that we don't know yet.
Yeah. There's no doubt going to be a lot of considerations with this technology.
And not to mention, also storage. That's a big thing. Just
I was just about to say, the best bit about all of this is we were all in Slack channels with work. You could just see the flood of excitement emojis from like all of the art teams, and then all of the horror emojis from all of the tech and the programming team. It's like all of us getting all hyped up, like, oh my god, yeah, unlimited polys, and the tech team like, whoa, chill. Okay, maybe not unlimited. Let's just breathe for a second. And that was hilarious because all of us said, oh, my Slack just said this. Oh, mine did too. That really cracked me up.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing that needs to be remembered about it, is that these proprietary engines are like great, and they're made by probably some of the smartest people in that particular studio. But not every engine in the world is going to be funded by Fortnite, which has made, I'm
Yeah.
reading now, was $1.8 billion in
Oh
2019,
my god.
which is
So-
just a horrendous amount of money to pour into a bit of tech. So, although it does have all the bells and whistles, and like we're all going mental about it, we have to be a bit realistic in our expectations of our colleagues, essentially,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and what's sensible for smaller businesses to do.
Yeah,
It's,
right off the bat, it's just a case of I'm very curious to see this. Maybe quite a few years down the line from now, when we see games developed in UE5 with this nanite technology and Lumen and so on and so forth, what we can get away with, because it's okay saying infinite polys, and I do trust Epic with their tech, considering how transparent they've been. But I want to see this from a game format, full scale game with this technology, to get a better idea of what our new limitations in regards to poly count are and memory.
so
Yeah,
going off of that, so for starters, they said they're running it on a PS5, which obviously has new storage systems, which we don't have yet, because they're using Ryzen, which is the for PS5, which I believe is the Zen 2 architecture, which is Ryzen 3, the current gen. So that has like PCIe 4.0, which using SSDs like M.2 allows you to have insane read and write speeds through it. So being able to push and pull that amount of data isn't an issue, but being able to edit that as a team of artists and bring that into engine and then just storing that raw amount of data. But I did see, I'm trying to find it now. One of the tech artists at Unreal said that they're aware that obviously high poly counts will be an issue, but they're working on solutions. So I'm trying to find that so I can quote it more accurately.
yeah. I think I remember you sending that a while back. There's definitely going to need to be some serious considerations from the technical side of things, purely for storage and ensuring that
just
every
handling the files
computer has
too.
that.
So you can't just throw in like a ZBrush 30mm poly into Max Mira or Blender and just be like, oh, okay, we're just going to use this. Like, no.
Imagine having to pull like those raw files through source control.
Oh my god.
It's going to be some serious infrastructure.
Source control is an issue now. Like, handling art assets, like not even like defined assets, like as in the modeling files, the texturing files, the ZBrush files. Handling all of this stuff is already a nightmare. Like, so imagine that when you then throw on, we're gonna, instead of 2K, they're 8K textures, and instead of like 10mm poly high poly, it's like now it's 30mm high poly. Oh, by the way, that's your low poly too.
Not to mention high texture resolutions and So that's another thing is, so when I first started watching it, we were all joking because I had no clue what was coming. I kind of thought that it was like a late April Fool's or something. So we're all joking and the guys are talking, and then they start showing the stuff and everyone goes quiet. The first thing that comes to my mind is, how does this work? I want to play with it. And then the second is, how do we implement it in our workflows, and what does it replace? And like, is it better than what we have set already?
I imagine it will come with its own demons.
Definitely.
It's like the grass is greener, sure, but what does that actually mean?
We talked about this with trim sheets, didn't we? We're still going to use trim sheets, and not because of like optimization reasons, just because for consistency's sake. Like, if you make an ornate detail, you have not got time to sculpt that same ornate detail on every single modular piece. You're going to have to trim it.
We talked about this vaguely after, and I also brought it up yesterday. Is one, we could probably do something similar to trim sheets, like have trim meshes. If we can't support those poly counts. But also, it does help the people that do that, like with the height map, and then you tessellate and offset.
Yeah,
if you can apply that tessellated offset, you essentially have a trim mesh. So there's a lot of things you could possibly do.
Exactly what I was going to say. Like, I imagine we're going to see a lot more tessellation in games with this technology, not just high poly meshes everywhere.
It won't be dynamic anymore. I think it'll be in the mesh.
Yeah.
Probably landscapes will look amazing.
That'd be it.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for that. Yeah.
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 Well, this was
All the scatters, all the
I
tessellations.
think
Yeah.
the area that they showed was absolutely ideal in showing off this
Yeah.
technology,
think
with
so
all of
too,
the
yeah.
jagged rocks everywhere and
Yeah.
just the insane amount of tertiary detail on the ground with all the pebbles.
Yeah.
I really want answers though in regards to the foliage and the hair cards and whether or not this extends
Yeah.
to skinned meshes. You know, that's
You
what
want the
I wanna know at
truth.
the moment. I just want the truth, man.
You can't handle the truth.
It feels like they're hiding something.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about one thing which we all picked up on, which
Yeah.
was the character shadows, the dynamic contact shadows and stuff like when she puts her hand on the door and it looks like it's hovering a little bit. Does that maybe draw like a bit of indication of where the difficulties might come in terms of, okay, this looks great as a static pretty picture, and it might look great with your character walking through the static pretty picture. But when you
So-
start introducing AI, combat,
Those
gameplay,
shadows, we still don't know how they work. We know that they use mesh shadows for like the sunlight, it's which is amazing now because we're not limited by like your light map resolution and your shadow cascades in order to be able to pick things up on like, your tessellated mesh for performance reasons. So we get some really nice shadows casted by the actual geometry that is there, which is insane.
Yeah.
But we don't know. We know that it's dynamic from the player because they also cast a shadow. But with what's the video that I linked earlier, the one that broke it down? Who made the video?
Digital Foundry.
It was
Digital Foundry.
yeah.
They did a great
Yeah, that's a
job
good
of
one.
breaking down different passes of the GI and the shadowing, but they didn't really talk about whether the player is also casting the same kind of shadows because it kind of feels like screen space ambient occlusion when she's very
Yeah.
close to objects because there's
Yeah.
that softness to it and kind of a bit of a fade on the edge.
Yeah.
Um,
It's kind of just a
Yeah.
lot of speculation at the moment until they
Definitely.
kind of
Yeah.
give us a bit more information. But
Yeah, and once we understand more technically about it, because if it is something like meshlets, and we think, okay, well, if we're going to be making a big open world game, something like Skyrim or Witcher or something like this, and you want to have all these different assets, but you want it to be slightly lighter than obviously their presentation, you can be like, okay, maybe we'll have it as streaming meshes based off of like higher resolutions rather than per pixel per 16 or 32 pixels.
yeah,
If you can do something like that, what are the performance trade-offs or the quality trade-offs or culling trade-offs? Sorry if there's background noise. I don't know if you guys can hear that.
nah, that's all good.
No, that's good.
I was going to jump on that culling distance points because we watch half of that demo through the eyes of someone going through a cave. What happens when you have an open world game like that? And let's take
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey for example. You're on the top of Mount Olympia and you're looking across Greece essentially at how far can you see before you start hitting performance issues with all of those millions, hundreds of millions, billions of polys and if
So
that's within the viewing
something-
frustum, is that still going to stream in all the texture information?
Yeah. So something Asher Zoo, I'm probably butchering his name. He said with Unreal Engine 5, he's a technical artist at Epic.
yeah,
He tweeted saying geometry streaming, mesh LOD, and normal maps will slowly slip into history. I remember them in the actual video talking about how they only stream the geometry and the detail in that they need. So if it is based off of like pixel size and the mountains in the distance they're a mile away.
yeah,
So would it dynamically load those meshes and what you see there and shade them based off of whatever the pixel size is of that object over the distance in that case, because it's a bigger object further away. 1 pixel is a much larger area. So if there is something like that does stream that kind of information, then that one, it holds the quality over distance, because obviously it's 1 pixel. You're not going to notice a difference whether it's 1,000 triangles or 1 triangle. So if they do have something like that's amazing, and that could be the way that they're countering that. But we just don't know yet. We don't have enough information.
So are we
so I wanna
seeing
play with it to find out?
Are we seeing the potential end of viewing distance issues in games?
Lodding, maybe, but I don't know about viewing distance.
I think maybe it might be a change in it. Like there's still going to be the issue of like, you know, you don't process that. You don't need to process a 20 million poly asset, which is off on a distance. It will just be, instead of lodding it, there'll be a different way of doing it.
I'm hoping we're seeing the ending of Shadow Cascades, so we can see like infinite shadow, and like because the resolution that they showed and said is amazing. They're like equivalent of 16K shadow maps. Which is
and they're like just faking the penumbra.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention that
Really?
next. I was watching all the shadows to see the soft shadows and see if the penumbra of the fall off from like how close the player is, and also when she's inside the cave, she makes a little like point light in front of her with that little blue light she can make.
Yeah,
and then she turns it into a flashlight, and the penumbra seemed quite accurate based off of what I can discern, based off of the size of the light as well, which is really cool. And the fact that that's dynamic kind of blew my mind.
For those who aren't in the know, what is a penumbra?
Do you want to do it, Jay, or should I?
Go for it. You're the tech guy. I'm more technically minded than me. Go for it.
It's just essentially the closer a light is, or the larger a light is, the closer an object is to another object, and the light that's being cast from those objects, the objects are together, the harder the light is, and then the further away they are from each other, or the larger the light, the softer the light gets as it falls away from the shadow cast.
If you think of like a skyscraper, the point of contact in which the shadow is drawn right next to the skyscraper edge, let's say, the edge of the shadow is going to be really sharp, and then further away it gets, it's going to be much more blurry. NVIDIA introduced the tech around the time GTA 5 got released, I think, in regards to the shadow casting. And
it's never been very physically accurate with the way that we do sort of rasterized shadows. And this seems like we're getting much more, even though it's not full ray tracing, that because things are so dense, and I'm not sure if they kind of calculate the shadows to the mesh information. I'm not sure how that works, but it's either way, it just seems way more accurate.
I'd love to see the extent of it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very curious about like the subject matter they chose as well for this demo, because obviously Stone Temple. I mean, okay, one thing we all picked up on, for example, the water didn't look great. It did have it, but then we were like, a bit of reaction effects and some particle effects, from it. Okay, maybe it looks a bit better. However, sorry, go on.
The way the water works, I'm thinking about it now, might actually give us some insight into how it treats animated meshes. I mean, like any mesh that has the vertex offset, because that wasn't like a simulated water where you have a point cloud of particles that gets moved realistically by the player. Anything like that. That was just, they have a point for the player and they're doing a simple simulation, but it dictates where the waves come from and how the waves come back based off of the volume.
Yeah,
that's what I assume based off of my experience with simple textures like that. There's even some materials like that in the Unreal 4 like demo files that you can just get for free. So they're all there, and the way to make them is there, but that seemed to react realistically in the sense of it shaded well with everything around it. So maybe there is some way that it's dynamic, or maybe it's just not, and I'm just looking too far into this. But the lighting seems to dynamically be reacting with a mesh that can.
The thing I found interesting was there's very little in terms of reflection shown off in this.
Yes. Yeah, other than like GI kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, this is great. Like, this is a beautiful scene. However, there's basically next to no, like, having to actually deal with like the way the bounce light is in, like, say, a sci-fi scene. That I'm very curious to see is when we start introducing how it reacts, because everything they've done with this demo is everything's deliberate. They've chosen everything for very specific reasons to show off the features to the best of their ability. That always draws me to the point of, okay, why not choose something else? There's a lot of cool stuff they could have done, and maybe it's just me being over analytical with it. But I'm curious to know, like, okay, how do you handle how does like hard surface reflective surfaces be handled with this new lighting system that they're running? Does it work just as well? Are you forced to go to like the original global illumination? Like, how does that work?
Well, also, I mean, like how are they treating stuff like translucency and foliage? Because we didn't see any of that really either.
Yeah.
And then kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, how does this affect our current workflows? Because if you wanted to do
Yes.
something like a Star Citizen workflow inside of this, you're not going to be able to, unless you like somehow tessellate your meshes. And obviously it relies heavily on Palm. You'd have to completely change how you do your workflow just to move to this kind of, I guess, mesh streaming. I'm not sure if how you approach making the mesh will affect how things will be brought into Engine. And
Well, this is a great point. What kind of
loaded
games
into-
will actually benefit from the tech that we're seeing, and what games won't?
Maybe they chose the environment and went for like a very Uncharted-y kind of setting.
Tomb Raider,
for
Like
maybe.
Tomb Raider,
Tomb Raider.
definitely.
Yeah.
It's time turnaround as well, though, isn't it? Like you look at the likes of a Naughty Dog game or Rockstar, for that matter. Like there is so like the game doesn't go out till the game looks like it needs to. There's so much attention to detail. Now, other games where there's like less attention on the narrative or less attention to like this very singular linear story, more open world games. So any of the the Ubisoft open world games, where it's like, okay, we've got so much to build that we don't have time to go to this level of detail. It's like it's gonna be interesting how much of this we actually adopt, because it's the same with every tech demo that comes around. We only adopt like 20% of the tech they show off into workflows because they're too expensive. So it's like, okay, so what do we adopt from? So actually, here's an interesting question for all of you. If we have to adopt like one thing from what they've shown off with this into your workflows now, what's the one where you're like, I actually really just want that in my workflow?
Oh, Lumen.
Honestly,
Lumen. Yeah. Same.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because just not having to deal with light maps anymore takes out a huge chunk of the manual process of building an environment.
But is Lumen just a new lighting system? Like where in the video we talked about earlier, they said that distance meshes could be using this voxel based GI for the lighting, and then things up closer could be using distance fields, and then up close they use it gets written to a
Screen
virtual
space.
texture and then calculated in the screen space.
Yeah.
So it's cool if they're doing that, because that could help us in our workflows. But is it tied directly to, because if the meshes are so dense that it's one triangle per pixel, and we don't need normal maps anymore, the way that it probably calculates the luminance, it writes it to the material. Maybe I'm not sure how the buffers work. There's too many unknowns. So that's
Yeah.
But if that is the case and they're writing it like per triangle or almost per pixel in that sense, one, that's really accurate and probably why it looks so amazing. But two, if we're doing old school workflows where a triangle isn't a pixel, it's a giant area, it's just going to illuminate that one triangle. So we need to know kind of more.
That's very true. Yeah.
Is it funny though that like that's the thing all of you pointed to Lumen like is the thing you're excited for? Is that because we're all developers and like because you imagine like
maps, dude? It's
dude, you imagine like is it bad that like so I don't know about you guys. When I play games, sometimes the fact that I understand how games are made can ruin it for me if I see something I didn't like or there's a bug like in the environment the way it's made. Is this almost ruining the fun for us? I guess because we know how all this stuff works. We're not just going like losing our shit over a minute, limited polys. We're just like, oh yeah, the thing I'm actually interested in is not having to bake light maps anymore. That's what all the like tedious stuff. And this is where it gets interesting. Is that's the stuff that we end up adopting probably is the stuff to remove the tedious shit, not the million polys assets. Because we could be like, oh yeah, that's fun, that's great, but the tedious stuff like light maps and fucking even like stuff like collision, all that sort of stuff, it's like. That's what will get adopted. That removes the tedious shit for us, not the sexy stuff, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you made me think about something that when I rewatched this with Samir, and he brought up collision. I'm very curious when we have these such high density meshes.
Yeah.
How collision is going to be handled? Is that going to be? I'm assuming
voxel based potentially.
Could
it be?
If it's
we don't need to be wasteful either, do we?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you don't need a 16 million poly collision mesh.
But
this is the thing as well.
Still do their convex. They can still do their convex generation of collision meshes though, or we could have to
Yeah.
make custom ones depending on the mesh. But
You could feed it into. I nearly called it halloumi. I meant Houdini. Man, if only we had something called
Airball me right
halloumi.
now.
Feed it into Houdini, and it would potentially automate the collision process.
Yeah, depending on the studio. Yeah, the license.
Well, that's the point. I mean, where does Houdini sit in all of this? Because it's one of those procedural tools which everyone is getting on board with, and it's mega powerful. Where does that
well,
sit within this?
procedural does have a little bit more power when you don't have to optimize. Because if you can just make some desert cliffs and then like facet them, and you don't have to do the optimize and bake at the end, you just have those high polys that you just made. So that can streamline that a bit, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then there's photo scans as well. Like, it's hard not to look past photo scans and photo scan tech.
Definitely.
With this, especially like when I'm looking at the screenshot at the moment for that scene, and I'm like, yeah, like okay, them cliffs. I mean, I'm not talking about the temple. The temple stuff, yeah, okay, you're gonna need an artist to sculpt all that up for you. You're not gonna go into you might go scan a temple. I don't know, but all that surrounding stuff, all that rubble, is like it's hard to see why you would get an artist to sculpt all that at the moment, or even we brought someone brought Houdini, like simulating all of it. Either way, I don't see a viable reason to sit and sculpt all that stuff right now.
Yeah,
all the unique stuff, yes, for sure. I still imagine an artist going in and sculpting up a bunch of stuff, but the cliffs and the rubble and the foliage, like even if I take a photo scan and like everyone says with like the Quixel stuff, you're meant to take it and then make it your own and tweak it and edit it a little bit. But it's just impossible to look past it at this point. Like if this tech works.
Unfortunately, we can't all be god tier rock sculptors like every artist on the Santa Monica team, Sunny Santa Monica team. But what I'm hoping that this does for photorealistic artists that want to approach a scene similar to the one that they've shown off, where you've got a lot of obviously very organic rocks and such scattering the scene. I'm hoping that it encourages people to get into photo scanning a bit more, because I think there's some people seem to see it as quite a tedious process. But from my experience with photo scanning, I think it's very much enjoyable. I think a lot of people see it as taking the creativity out of things, but I think there's still a lot of creative liberty that comes with photogrammetry. I mean,
I'm going to play devil's advocate at this point, because I also enjoy scanning, but I think that when people see all of this realistic stuff come together, it's almost like the team splits into two, where you've got hardcore realistic graphics players, and then you have like the folks who really enjoy the deep stylized look. And it might push having a tool like this is going to push artists to take more creative liberties in what they do, just because the tech is allowing us to do so, but also with the fact that okay, I can place in this 16 million poly rock, but actually from an artistic point of view, compositionally, with the forms and shapes and lighting, do I even want to? Maybe you want to have something lower poly and have a simpler mesh just out of art direction.
True. I mean, it comes in. You start to think about stylized.
One thing's for sure, we're going to be seeing some really interesting low poly wireframes.
Chopped a little. But yeah,
he died. Carry on.
He's back, I think. No, okay.
Is he back?
No.
That's fine.
I'm just curious to see, because we can very safely assume that this is all going to. Epic is probably going to take Fortnite and put it into UE5. Chances are we'll see a lot of this tech and like Lumen and such in conjunction with Fortnite. Undoubtedly, I'm curious to see how a stylized game would utilize some of the stuff that Nanite and Lumen offers.
Fortnite pushed a lot of the new tech coming into UE4. It brought it into the production cycle, and it's almost like a test beta, doesn't it? It's like, okay, Fortnite is what it is. It's a very simple looking game. Like, obviously, it's got real cool style. I'm not hating on style. I'm saying the tech behind it. It was like their test bed for okay, we've got this new tech. We'll use it in Fortnite, and if it kind of works in Fortnite in a stylized game, actually, It worked in
Yeah.
production. In a production site situation on a mass scale, it worked. Right, let's take that over into like, we'll put this into UE4, 2.4, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's that's the bit I find quite interesting. It's like, okay, all this tech, yeah, you're 100% right. I'm almost guaranteeing that Fortnite will come to UE5.
Yeah.
It's okay, what tech from this demo are they going to actually bring into the production cycle and start to show off? Because they're going to have to drip feed this stuff in. Even if they release UE5 in production, they're going to set a few norms, set a few trends. Like, okay, this is going to be the piece of tech we're going to introduce. Say, for example, the global GI, just for argument's sake. All right, that's what they introduced with Fortnite. And then it was like, okay, it worked perfectly, it worked on servers, it worked with like all these players, great. Now all the other games can start looking at it, and it'll just go like that for a bit, I think.
It reminds me of when, well, I mean, I was finally forced to watch Toy Story 4 not too long ago, and I was just expecting, your classic Pixar kind of adventure thing. But what that movie had blew me away in terms of its proper PBR response and its lighting, volumetric lighting, and all of that subsurface scattering on the plastics and rubber and stuff. It's amazing. I
gorgeous.
couldn't
Yeah.
believe it, and I was drooling over all of the tech, and my girlfriend was looking at me like a weirdo. But I mean, it was like it really excites me because you're having proper material responses, but yet the film is still obviously so bold and art driven in its respect to its style.
Yeah.
It just excites me to see more the stuff. Even I'm not even into Fortnite. I don't really know much about it, and I've never played it. But I mean, it excites me still to see what studios like that do with it.
Very intrigued to see what kind of aspects of this new technology get taken by studios and sort of adapted to fit something that isn't photorealistic. As much as we all love our photorealism, and I think we're all very centered around realistic artwork in this call, I think I'm still very intrigued to sort of see different implementations.
I mean, what does this mean for the movie industry?
Oh yeah,
that's a whole other can of worms.
Well, the line's been blurred a lot.
Did you guys pause?
I don't know why. I don't know if it's just like my perception, but the past 3-4 years, I'm like, the tech that the studios are using, it's like, okay, we're both using
Patrick
like
so
Quixel
far.
and Substance Designer, we're both using photoscan pipelines, we're both using Houdini, like, so stuff for. So did I tell you guys about when I went to Vertex, the stuff that Pixar did for Houdini with the spiders? Did I tell you guys about that?
I think it sounds familiar, but I can't remember.
I don't know about it actually.
So like basically in the antique shop in Toy Story 4, there's like cobwebs everywhere.
Yeah.
And the way they did that,
I remember. Go on.
Yeah, they press, basically they literally press a button, and little red spiders, AI spiders, will go and form their all the cobwebs, and they'll do it like as they'll use a logic tool where they build them how a spiders would build them, and they'll just go around and they play the video of them just going through the whole level and simulating stuff. Now the thing I find interesting about that is that's CPU processing power. That's not GPU.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, all of this stuff that Unreal is showcasing to us right now is very GPU heavy. I'm curious to see what power they can leverage from the CPU to see that sort of tech, that procedural tech, where the AI is able to drive a bunch of creative stuff. How are they going to be able to use it? Because that's it. Also, I think we just got Mike back.
Yes, we did.
I didn't mess up what I already recorded, right?
So no, it's fine. You're an audio track. It's cool. It's cool.
Okay.
Well, actually,
carry on. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
It's cool, man. But I was just saying, actually, the tech guy is probably going to know the answer to this. So I was just saying, looking at the cool stuff the films are doing, and they use like really CPU heavy work they do in Houdini.
Mm-hmm.
All the stuff that Unreal is showcasing us is very GPU centric stuff, GPU powered stuff. And I'm just curious, what's on the horizon for the CPU driven stuff, or is there anything on the horizon?
I think thinking about CPUs, the way games have been for a very long time is obviously like we were getting like quad core processors for the i7s for many years, and all that really mattered for games was like how fast the core clock was, because games would mostly just use one core, but how fast it was would dictate how well the game would run. Whereas now we're shifted more to more cores and games utilizing more cores at once, and also the cores are clocking as high as one core used to. So we're getting. I think we'll definitely see performance gains in that. I know some engines like Snowdrop are really good at multi-core like tasks. As far as playback for simulation and things like that, I still think that there's so much data in that you're probably better with things like GPU. And we have things like a USD. What's the other thing where you can bake it out, like simulations, and then load them in?
Not sure on that one.
Not sure.
Damn it. It's completely skipping my mind. Alembic.
You're going too big brain, Mike. Come on, we can't keep up.
Dude, we're artists. Chill.
Well, to be fair, Mike has said multiple times he wants to be a tech artist, and like, that basically makes him a geek. So we'll stick being like creative nerds, and you could be the geek.
But yeah, I definitely, since you guys mentioned film, I see an overlap. And that's what got me really excited with this, because our workflows in game engines are becoming very similar to that of films. I don't know if that's what you guys talked about before I disconnected.
We got there.
Started to get there, yeah.
But
I mean-
the way films work at the moment is if you wanted a really nice explosion, you'd have to render out and simulate, then render out all the amazing like layers and then add them afterwards and like composite them together in post. Yeah.
This is one thing about it, is that it's going to improve the amount of iterations that directors and these VFX houses can get through.
Yeah.
If we can get to the point where we're doing stuff like that in real time, approaching those simulations less like realistically like full simulations, but as lower resolution simulations, and then using things like volume shaders to like up-res them, and just really cool stuff like that we can and already do in Unreal Engine 4 and Unity. I think that combined with things like what they're showing now for Unreal Engine 5, where everything's almost photorealistic, we're going to be seeing some insane effects inside of engines, and even previous whilst recording mocap, being able to see characters. I'm very excited for the future of film. I don't work in film, but I nerd out about the tech, and I'm all for industries overlapping more.
Definitely. I mean, we've already seen, I'm pretty sure The Mandalorian, the TV show, uses it for, and we're seeing it in all kinds of different, there's loads of different use cases for implementing.
And weather reports.
Exactly, yeah. The weather reports. Yeah, it's crazy. So UE5 is only going to, I'm sure they're only going to broaden their horizons with that stuff. It's going to become a lot more mainstream across different forms of media, no doubt. Definitely welcome.
Just out of curiosity, is there anything you're not looking forward to from this? Is there anything you're like, oh, I don't that particular thing is going to be so annoying to do if we go that way? Now we've touched on it a little bit, which is for me, which I'm worried about, which is storage and just handling these big fucking files.
Yeah,
that's my main concern. Do you guys have anything?
I mean, that really is the big one for me. Is just seeing how companies adapt in regards to updating hardware and just core infrastructure of the studio. seeing how we adapt to that is going to be one huge step for everyone. No doubt a headache for any studio engineers. So but as an artist personally, nothing really comes to mind. It seems that this just takes away a lot of the monotonous things that we have wanted to get rid of, to remove from our pipeline across the years, like light mapping and any sort of manual loading processes. I think this is mostly a huge, big positive step.
Yeah. The funny thing about that is people are always scared about a new software taking their jobs, or like something that automates taking. But if you can automate UVs and light maps for me, I don't care. Just do it.
Yeah.
We talked exactly about this with Rogelio and James. It's like things that new software doesn't take your job away. All it means is it takes the tedious shit out, and you have to make more of it. When ZBrush was, when Designer came in, ZBrush artists and material artists didn't disappear. It just meant they changed their craft a little bit, and they're expected to produce 5 materials a week instead of 1. It just means you scale up everything you do. You scale up in quality, you scale up in scope.
Yeah.
I don't see it taking jobs, and it's actually an interesting thing which we've heard murmurs of a little bit, which was about, oh, we're going to get a bunch of students who just want to drop these crazy polygon assets into their portfolios, and no one's going to be able to tell the difference, and this is bad. And the point to that was the exact same happened when Painter came out. When Painter came out, everyone slapped, a bunch of students slapped gold bronze armor on an asset with cool reflections.
Yeah.
We were still able to distinguish between quality and not quality. Same with Quixel Megascans. There's murmurs of, oh, we don't like Megascans. Like, all people do is throw foliage in a portfolio. Well, any artist who works in the industry, I think, is able to sort of distinguish a little bit between what is a well-crafted scene and what is just a load of assets dropped in there.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's
even
a little bit, and I think it's the same.
Also, the bar for making, like, if you want to make one of those statues that they had in that demo, like, that's a hero piece. That's going to take a lot of time. That's a lot of detail and a lot of topology. So students are going to have issues loading that on their systems anyway. So I don't think we'll see too much of that. But I do think it'll entice people to, like, when they're approaching meshes, to just hit subdivide like 10 times and then kind of go nuts. But
feels like there's almost like no room for mistakes, because like you can see everything right in geo.
Yeah.
Interesting, because like sometimes when you bake and texture, you can like hide little mistakes, which is completely valid. But with that stuff, it's kind of, you see everything like right up close. So that's going to be interesting to see how that will change something.
So here's a hypothetical that I want to raise, is that, let's say that some of the big players weigh in. So you have folks, let's say Google releases this 3D bank of resources similar to Quixel, completely scanned, but it's on like a mass scale. So if you can imagine it, there's a scan for it. What effect would that have on the modern environment artist whose core responsibility is to be able to model and texture? Does everyone just become set dresser at that point?
I think
I don't think so.
Situational, right? Based on the
even
project.
term environment artist changes from studio to studio. At some studios, an environment artist can just be a set dresser, and at others you'll be making the props and environments by hand. So
Yeah.
In your particular use cases, like, let's take a building where, like, you're going to run through an abandoned apartment block. Yeah, okay, they do have a scan for every door and every wall and all that sort of stuff, and sofas. You're still going to need variations to fit the gameplay. I will need a particular stack of boxes in this way with a pallet on it so that the player can run up it. Like, you're still going to need artists to composite these things into actual props for game specific reasons, and then, like Michael led to, you still got level dressing and set dressing and crafting these worlds. And we've seen artists do it with Megascans. Like, you don't just take Megascans and use them out of the box. Like, you modify, you use them for your particular use case.
Yeah.
That's normally what stands Megascans out from when people just throw them into a scene. Is when they just throw it out of the box and it just feels out of place. You still need that level of artistry to bed it into your scene and make it feel like it's part of this bigger environment.
Yeah.
But I will say that if that did ever come out, that would be incredibly useful for blocking out levels to a higher quality. Just be able to grab a bunch of that shit and just throw it together. Like, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
So here's the thing about that, is that with I think everyone's seen that Dreams video of the guy who basically replicated that reveal inside Dreams. I mean, with that and other game making tools, will it get to the point where you can make games on such a rapid basis and it's completely accessible to consumers? So like your average Joe can pick up a game engine and make a game, essentially, like photography and film used to be. So it used to be exclusive for those who could afford the tech. Now everyone can make a film and take a photo. Will games ever get to that point?
I don't think so. I think like even the Unreal guys. I think 3 of us use Unreal for production, and I think the thing you got to bear in mind is out the box Unreal is very hard to make an actual game out of. Like, you normally need custom engines, which then require very clever engine programmers and architects to like tweak it, work it to gameplay.
In-house tools.
Nothing in the world out the box is like a commercially viable product, or very few anyway. And I think it's the same with Unreal Engine. Like, it will make it easier, but also all this tech is probably super finicky and super technical and hard to use. So it's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna be a case of, oh, anyone can now pick up Unreal Engine and just release all these games. I think there's there's still so much stuff that needs to be done in the back end. You still need programmer architects. You still need tech artists. You still need all these people because this stuff is just too complex for one person to know everything for and just use it out of the box. That's my take on it anyway.
I agree.
Guys, we've been going for 50 minutes. This has been a very insightful episode. I'm glad we did this. I know we've been talking pretty much every day since this reveal.
Yeah.
In Discord, like just having conversations, and I'm really glad we sort of recorded this conversation because I think a lot of people are going to probably find it quite insightful, and it is just a casual conversation. For everybody listening, all of these guys' art stations are going to be linked in the description. Please make sure to go check them out. Some of the great artists I work with, and they've really helped me over the years refine my craft. And this will be a regular thing.
Saying nice things now.
Yeah.
Well, apart from Mike's a moron, and he pretends to be so clever. We've
Doesn't
written him a
actually
script.
know what's going on with the tech.
No. We've written him a
It's
script.
just said
He's just
long
reading the
words.
script. Now, as to these episodes, these insert topic discussions, these are going to be coming a little bit more regularly. The next one coming up will be with some of the Ubisoft Massive guys, and we'll be discussing the state of industry. But that won't be for a couple of weeks yet. But everyone listening, I hope you found this useful. And to you four, thank you so much for coming on, guys.
Yep.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's all